The numerator of a certain fraction is 2 more than the denominator. If 1/3 is added to the fraction, the result is 2. Find the fraction. Okay, so we're using concepts that we have talked about before, but not in this context. So it refers to the numerator of a fraction. So we know that we're going to be using a fraction. We need to figure out what that fraction is, and they've given us a relationship between the numerator and the denominator. So here it says the numerator of a certain fraction is 2 more. So we know we're going to have 2 plus than the denominator. We don't know what the denominator is, but we're going to go ahead and label it as x. So here we have that the numerator, which is the top number, is 2 more than the denominator. That's 2 plus x. Well, we've established that the denominator is x, so we just need to put that there. If 1/3 is added to the fraction, I've run out of space here, but I'm going to do 1/3 is added to the fraction, which is referring to what we just created. We end up with plus 1/3. The result is, that's my equals sign, 2. So here is the equation that I need to use to solve for this. Notice I have 2 fractions or 2 rational expressions with a plus sign in the middle. So that means I need to find my common denominators. I talk about jealous child concept, where if the denominator is missing anything, it's going to be very unhappy. So we need to end up with exactly the same thing. So on the left-hand side, what does our right-hand side denominator have that our left-hand side does not have? Well, it has a 3. So we need to make sure that our left-hand fraction has a 3 to make sure that it's happy. The next part is our left-hand side now has a 3x. Is there anything that the right-hand side is missing? So it's unhappy. Well, it's missing an x. I'm going to actually erase this equal sign and move it over a little so I have a little bit more space. Okay, so I need to make sure that I get an x on the bottom. And remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. So that's why on the left, I have 3/3, and on the right, I have x over x. Also, on the left, I have a binomial, the 2 plus x. So I have to include parentheses to remind myself that the 3 needs to get distributed. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and distribute. This allows me to expand my numerator, and then eventually I will be combining like terms. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 3 times x is 3x, plus 1 times x, that's this, is x. That's all over the common denominator that I created, which is 3x. And that equals 2. Now, in order to remind myself that I actually have a rational value on the right-hand side, I'm going to put 2 over 1. Okay, I'm not quite ready to do the next step yet. I still need to combine my numerator so that all of the like terms are combined. So I end up with 6 plus 4x over 3x equals 2 over 1. I've got one rational expression on each side of the equation, or of the equals sign. So at this point, I can go ahead and cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply 1 times 6 plus 4x and multiply 3x times 2. Now, because I'm multiplying by 1 here, I don't really need to worry about the parentheses, because 1 times anything is itself, so, or is whatever that thing is. So 6 plus 4x times 1 is 6 plus 4x. Okay, and then I get 3x times 2, which is 6x. Again, that's this part. And now I just need to combine or isolate. So I'm going to subtract 4x across the equal sign, because there are no other like terms I can combine. So 6 equals 2x, divide by 2, divide by 2. So 3 equals x. So back in the original equation, which was this part in terms of the relationship between the numerator and denominator, my x is 3, so I know that my denominator is 3. And then my numerator is 2 plus 3. And they're looking for finding the fraction. So I get 5 over 3, and that is my final answer. So the fraction is 5/3. Jerry jogs 1 hour each day over the same 9-mile course. 5 miles of the course is downhill, whereas the other 4 miles is on level ground. She runs 2 miles per hour faster downhill than on level ground. Find her rate on level ground. So here, it's really important to notice that we're being given distances, rates, and times. So we know that our basic equation is going to be d, as in distance, equals rate times time. And then we need to take the information that they've given us and plug the information into that equation. Okay, so it also says that she jogs 1 hour each day over the same 9-mile course. This is very important because we know that the total trip takes 1 hour. So we know that the time it takes, and I'm just going to call it T1 for the moment, the time that it takes to go 5 miles downhill plus, I'm going to call it T2. So this is my T1. The other 4 miles is on level ground. So the amount of time that that takes, I'm labeling as T2. Now I could use X and Y. I could use, U and D for uphill and downhill, or level ground, what have you. But I'm just using T1 and T2. So I know that those equal a total amount of time of 1 hour. Now I have 2 unknowns here, so I can't use that equation yet to solve for anything, but I do have my d equals rate times time. Now if I isolate my t, so I divide both sides by r, I get that t equals d over r. Well, I've got T1, and I also have T2, which equals also d over r, although my distance and my rate in each of these cases are not the same, but I'm going to take the information they've given me and plug it into each equation. Okay, so my T1, which is the 5 miles of the course, is downhill. Well, my 5 miles goes into the d for my T1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put 5, and again, this is my T1. Okay, and then over, and it says she runs 2 miles per hour faster downhill. That's my 5 miles. I'm going to say R is my rate, and then she goes 2 miles per hour faster going downhill. So what I've done is I've taken the information related to my T1, my downhill, which again, the T1 is what I labeled. You can label it with whatever you like. And I put the d that they gave me, which is 5, and the rate, which I've established as r, that's my standard rate, plus the 2 miles per hour faster for going downhill. So that's my T1. Now T2, I need to do the same thing. And here it says that she goes 4 miles on level ground. So again, my distance is 4, so I've just plugged that value in here. And my rate is flat ground, so R is my rate. Okay, so notice I have a value or an equation for T1, I have an equation for T2, and now I do substitution. So T1 is 5 over R plus 2 plus T2, which is 4 over R, and that equals, I'm going to write it as 1 over 1 so that it's clear I have a rational expression on the right-hand side as well. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide to actually work out this problem. Okay, I'm going to continue with the jogging problem and actually go solve this. So notice I have two rational expressions on the left-hand side, and I only have one on the right, which is what I want ultimately. So I don't need to do anything to the right-hand side, but I do need to get the left-hand side combined into combine two rational expressions into one. I have a plus sign, so that means I need to use the jealous child concept, finding a common denominator. Now be very careful here. I have an r, but in order to give that the second denominator what the first denominator has, the 2 plus r travels together. Otherwise, if you just do a 2 plus or an r plus 2, you're going to be changing the value of the fraction. Okay, so I need to multiply top and bottom by 2 plus r, multiply by 2 plus r. On the right-hand side, it still needs an r, so I'm going to multiply top and bottom by r. And now I'm ready to figure out each numerator. So r times 5, I'm going to write as 5r plus 4 times 2, which is 8. So I'm now distributing these, plus 4r all over the denominator, which I need to distribute the r. So I get 2r plus r squared, and that equals 1 over 1. Now I'm not quite ready to do cross multiplying because I need to combine my numerator. So I get 5r plus 4r, which is 9r plus 8 over, I'm going to go ahead and write the denominator in degree order because notice I have that squared term. So r squared plus 2r, and that equals 1 over 1. Now I have two equations, or two rational expressions, one on each side of the equal sign. So I need to go ahead and cross multiply. So I get 9r plus 8 equals r squared plus 2r. Notice I have a quadratic because of that squared term. So I need to remember what I have to do to be able to solve a quadratic. And that is you need to get it equal to 0. And then you need to factor it and use your zero factor principle to actually find your values. So I'm going to subtract 9r and minus 8 from both sides. So minus 9r minus 8. The left-hand side becomes 0. For my own sanity, I'm going to write the r squared minus 7r. I got that from subtracting these guys. Minus 8 on the left-hand side, and that equals 0. Okay, now I can go ahead and factor. So I do my two sets of parentheses. I have r and r. I've got a negative on my last term, so I know that both signs have to be different. And then what factors of negative 8 add up to negative 7? So I have a 1 and I have an 8. Now I go ahead and solve. So I get r plus 1 equals 0 and r minus 8 equals 0. I go ahead and subtract 1, so r equals negative 1 plus 8, so r equals 8. Okay, now in this case, because we're looking at a speed, we can't have a negative speed, so negative 1 cannot be my answer, so it has to be that r equals 8 miles per hour, and that is your final answer.